We're looking at Tosafos on the bottom of Hamid Bays. We're going to do two Tosafos today, the next two Tosafos. First Tosafos. So this is still somewhat in continuation to the previous Tosafos. This is the Gemara explaining the Chidush in the fact that you don't collect, that you could collect Torah's money from a Yasam, even though ordinarily you need to make a Shiur. Right? Ordinarily, if you're going to take money back that's owed to you from the estate of orphans, let's just say it's adults, to save ourselves from the headache of the last Tosafos. So ordinarily, you'd have to take a vow if you didn't get paid back yet. But because over here, you're collecting Torah's money, and the chazaka of Reish Lakish is that a person never pays early, therefore you collect even without a shvur. Okay. And the way the Gemara phrase it is, Afagav the Amar Rabbanan. Tosafos' version is Rabbanan, our version is the Amar Mar. Master said, or the sages said. Okay. Even though ordinarily our sages say that a person who wants to collect money from the estate that are now in the hands of orphans or inherited estate, one has to take a vow, shvur. So Tosafos says like this. Tosafos is going to scour through Shas and try to find where exactly the source of the statement is. So first Tosafos introduces us to another place where it also quotes it as a fact of our sages. Tanya Nami about Perek, we find the similar statement in the Gemara in Ksubas, which says, what should I do? Our sages said, etc. One who collects debt from an estate that hands in the orphans, you have to take a shvur. Mashma, the implication is from both here and there, especially there, which is Amru Chachamim, our sages said. Over here it says Amar Mar, Master said. That could be a Amoida from the Gemara. It doesn't have to be a Mishnah. Even Amar Rabbanan Ladafka has to be a Mishnah. But when you say Amru Chachamim, it's pretty clearly a Mishnaic idea. So it says Mashmashi Mishnah, Mishum Makam. It seems like it's a Mishnah somewhere. The Tema, and it's curious to me, Heicha Amru Chachamim. Where did the sages say this? Throughout, we don't find a Mishnah that has a statement that Abali Parad B'Chsisemim, Bali Parad B'Tech Shvur. You don't have such a statement. So we have to go through other cases in Shas that might imply this and see if the implication is strong enough to make this as a klal, and that's the source for the klal. So first he starts with almana. When it comes to an almana, where over there a widow who wants to collect her ksuba, we tell her she has to take a vow. She has to take a shvur before she collects her ksuba. So there, you cannot compare Yisomim to an almana. Why? The shiny almana, because almana is different, as we mentioned in the last Tosafos also. To Isla Tanai Bezdin, because the payment to the ksuba is part of the conditions that Bezdin imposed upon their marriage, namely in the ksuba. Whereas a loan is not a Bezdin imposed debt. It's a personally imposed debt, so he doesn't feel as obliged to pay back during his lifetime. Whereas ksuba, which is a Bezdin imposed obligation upon his marriage, so therefore we're concerned that he may have paid out the ksuba in his lifetime, even though the zman ksuba is only a death or divorce, right? So the zman of the ksuba didn't happen yet. It's terzmanim. Yeah, we still say he may have paid out, but because it's Tanai Bezdin. So therefore, that can't be the raya that a person who wants to collect from Yisrael also has to make a shvur. Okay, and because it's Tanai Bezdin for Chashinon, we are concerned with Saturday that the husband left a bundle to pay her off. Tfei, we're worried more there than we are by Yisrael, as we mentioned in the last Tosafos as well. Okay, so we're still left without a source for the statement that a bali part of Yisrael lay part of Shvur. So either he says, this can be derived from the fact that the Mishnah says the Perek HaKosev in Ksubas, also in Ksubas, another Gemara in Ksubas. Misha Mes, with respect to someone who died, Niach Isha Ubal Chayv, and left behind both a wife who requires to Ksuba and borrowers, creditors. He owes money to people also, besides for the wife. And now, in addition to that, He had money that other people owed him. Either he left it there as pikadon, that he asked them to watch it on their behalf, or he left it to them. So there's money from people B and C that belong to A, and he owes to his wife and other people. Okay, so you have to collect from these guys to go to pay those guys back. So says the Gemara there, says the Mishnah there in Tosafos, Yitnu l'Yarshim, give it to the inheritors, as opposed to the creditors. Why? Shekulam, because all the rest of them, tzrichim shvua, they have to take a vow. They have to take a vow if they have to take a vow that they never got paid back from the deceased person, right? But the ein hayarshin tzrichim shvua, but the inheritors themselves don't have to take a shvua to collect money that their father owes them. Which means that anybody else collecting from them doesn't have to take a vow. And there's your ayah that a person who collects from Yisraelim must take a vow. Mm-hmm. Even though the Mishnah there is talking about collecting it from the deceased person's creditors, but the Mishnah reasons.
The estate.
Oh, sorry?
From the creditors or from the estate itself before it's divided?
So it seems from the creditors, right? Because this guy owes money to both his wife and to creditors, and he has money that he lent other people. So we're going to take the money that he lent other people and pay back his creditors. And the Mishnah there comments, give the money first to the Yarshim, and then take the extent to pay back to the other guys. Why? Because everybody else needs to take a vow, whereas the Yarshim don't need to take a vow. So here's a raya, if you're going to collect from Yarshim, you have to take a vow, take a shvur. This is what the Rashi says. So that's raya number one. Source number one for the idea of a bali part of Mitzvah, bali part of Shvur. But moreover, tonight we learned Shvur in the Gemara and Shvur. That if orphans collect from other orphans, so if Yaakov, we don't use Esav as an example, but whatever, Yaakov owed his brother. Yaakov owes money to whatever, Yehuda, and both Yaakov and Yehuda die. So Yaakov's children want to collect from Yehuda's children. So then, well, you're part of the shvur. The Yisraelim have to take a shvur. What kind of shvur are they going to take? They can't take a shvur that we never got paid back because their credit, it didn't belong to them, it belongs to their father. So what kind of shvur are they going to take? So says the Gemara there, they take a shvur, abba. We haven't found amongst our father's documents that this debt has been paid off. We didn't find a receipt. We didn't find any documentation in our father's documents that he got money back from your father, and therefore we want to collect. So says Tosafos. So this is the din that the Mishnah says there in Shavuos. So Alma, so we can deduce from here, says Tosafos, that if the father himself was coming to collect from these Yisraelim, if Yaakov himself was coming to collect from his children, then certainly Nishba, he would take a vow that he's not paid back. If his children are to take a vow that we haven't found in our father's documents that he was paid back, then certainly the original guy is going to take a vow that he wasn't paid back. So Mekan Mashma. So from here we can. So these are the two sources in the Mishnah for this idea that a bali part of similarly part of Shvua, even though the Gemara makes it sound as if it's a direct quote from somewhere, but we don't find the quote anywhere in the Mishnaic era, except for two times where the Gemara quotes this. In the Amrayim quoted as if the Chachamim said it before, but this is what Tosafos finds, two places that imply. Then Tosafos concludes, Mashma, the implication is that if a person takes out a star, which indicates that the other person owes him money. So Reuven produces a star that Shimon owes him money. V'amar le, and 1 second. Who's taking the shvua here? Yeah. V'amar and Amar who's telling who? Ishtabali, make a shvua for me. The loitra peraticha b'goyzimne. Reuven gave Shimon money, and Reuven now takes out a paper that says Shimon owes back the money. So he tells him, yeah. So Shimon says to Reuven, you take a shvua that I didn't pay you back early. So obviously, in Tzarech L'aseh shvua, he doesn't have to. You can't compel him to make a shvua because the chazaka the guy doesn't pay back early.
Mm-hmm.
But why is this line coming after the whole Tosafos and not right from the beginning? Mikan mashma, from here it's mashma. It seems just like from the din, not from the whole Tosafos. I guess once Tosafos substantiated the din, that became something mikan mashma. Like what's the mikan mashma? If it's just from the Gemara, then it should have been nukti bar maschal. Like what's this last line? How is it connected to everything you said till now? Unless somehow the case of the Yisodin implies that. It seems like it's mashma just directly from the Gemara, doesn't it? Right? Well, let's see. How do we lead to this? Reuven produces a shtar and Shimon, that Shimon owes him money. So Shimon says to Reuven, take a vow, take a shvua that I didn't pay back early, and then I'll pay you. You tell him no, because you have a chazaka. Okay? Seems straightforward enough. Oh, I see. I'll tell you why. Because in the case of the Yisomim, where one Yosim vows to another, who's taking the shvua? Not the person who's, well, no, it's always the person who's collecting.
Yeah.
It's always the person who's collecting.
And even the other in the place of the same, if they have been
He's also collecting. He's also collecting. Yes, I'm not sure why this line comes at the end of Tosafos here. It seems like it's a freestanding statement. Anyway, okay. Maybe the Marsha, the Maram saying anything about this?
Well, it's freestanding in the sense that
It could have been a different Dibbar Maschal, like is often the case in Tosafos, whereas to you the same Dibbar Maschal to make 2 different points. No. Okay, next Tosafos. So the next part of the Gemara was as follows. After the Gemara settled the issue of Rish Lakish and Abaye and Nova, the Gemara concluded we follow Rish Lakish, that we have a chazaka that a person does not pay back early. The Gemara asked, do we say a migu b'makom chazaka? Or the language of the Gemara is mali l'shaker. Why should I lie? I could have made a bigger lie. So what's the migu against the chazaka? That it's a year after the due date, or a long time after the due date. And Reuven comes collecting the money and says, you owe me money. And the shtar he produces has a due date from a year ago. So Shimon says, I paid you back early. I paid you back before the due date. So on the one hand, Rashi said, I could have lied and said that I paid you back on time. Right? So the Mali Shakar, right? I could have said I paid back on time. And Rashi actually said, if you look at the last Rashi on the top on the page in Haman Bays, Mali Shakar, Iboy Omar, if he wants, he could have said late to him, with money, I paid you on time. When he says I paid you early, Nemon b'shvur, he's Nemon with shvur. I'm still not sure why Rashi said adds that word shvur. Well, why the shvur? Why the shvur? Anyway, maybe it's universal. Then you have to swear that you paid off. I don't know. Anyway,
the shtar?
Sorry.
He has a shtar that he owes him.
Presumably.
no. Maybe,
But let's say it's Aiden. What's the difference? Let's say no shtar. Let's say it's Aiden.
That's why he needs a shvur.
Let's say it's Aiden.
Maybe he needs a shvur because he's saying
He has Aiden that he owed him money. So I need a shvur. I pay back on time. Like Rashi said.
Shua al pay. You don't need.
Right.
If there's a milva al pay, you don't need to. You don't need a shavua.
Aiden. Right. He doesn't have to make a shvur. He doesn't make a shvur. Look, like the
If he has a shtar.
Sorry.
If you have a shtar, then you would have to need a shavua, no? So you paid back.
Is that right? I'll take your word.
So.
So the top, like the Rashi in the top line, second line, Pshita. Pshita the Naman, Shari Zutainas, money will leave Yatcha. Someone who says, you owe me $100. But Allah, and the other guy says, you don't know me anything. And Pshita the Naman. Because why not? My word against your word. But over here he's saying I paid you early. Right? So do we say that because he could have lied and said, because if I wanted to lie, I would have said I paid you on time, in which case I would have been believed with a shvuah for some reason, Rashi says. Or because the chazaka is a person never pays back early, there's this long-winded Rashi that, like, if you remember, we were kind of discussing it then, what exactly Rashi meant. But given the says because we have a chazaka that a person doesn't pay back early, this is on top of Vav Aleph. We don't say considering that there's a chazaka the Maril Debure, now he's making his words worse. We don't say that why shouldn't he lie? Like, if I wanted to lie, I would have made a better lie. Because the words you're saying now are completely undermined considering the chazaka. That's what the Gemara said. So it's a migu b'makom chazaka. Now Tosafos is going to attempt in a number of different ways to try to resolve the issue by comparing it to other dinim and try to resolve the issue of migu b'makom chazaka. So let's see how Tosafos does that. Hiksho Hari bar Mordechai. The Ri bar Mordechai asked. I'm assuming it's different than the regular Ri, because usually Ri is not introduced by Bar Mordechai, especially since the Gemara Rashi is going to, Tosafos is going to say in a minute, I'm Ri, without saying Bar Mordechai. So I assume it's a different person. Hiksho Hari bar Mordechai. The Ri, son of Mordechai, asked. This chazaka, that a person doesn't pay back early, adifa, is stronger than a shtar. And to your point, Moshe, the b'shtar ain't a goy v'elam shvua. When it comes to a shtar, if a person produces a shtar that he owes him money, no, this is the collector here that says a shvua. Rashi is saying that the person who paid takes a shvua. It's a different shvua, right? The person who paid off says a shvua that he paid already. Whereas here it's talking about in a goyvel of a shvua, the collector has to take a shvua that nobody paid, they didn't get paid back yet, right? Yeah, and with the chazaka goyvel shvua, right? The whole point we just said before about the Yisayim, or maybe let's just say the whole thing's talking about Yisayim. The shtar in a goyvel shvua by Yisayim. I think that's what it is. And when you're collecting money from Yisayim, you have to take a shtar that you weren't paid back yet. You have to take a shvur that you weren't paid back yet. I don't think ordinarily by a shtar you have to make a shvur to collect. It's talking about Yisayim. But by chazaka, you don't have to. That was the whole point the Gemara said. I feel me ask me. So we see here that chazaka is stronger than Edim. Or stronger than a shtar. Shtar and Edim are the same thing. Shtar is because of the Edim that are on the shtar. So in the same scenario, you're collecting from Yisayim. If you're collecting with a shtar, you take a shvur that you never got paid back. And if you're collecting b'teich money, you don't take a shvur. It's a charai. This chazaka is stronger than shtar. Now, if in came, Micah Baboyle, if that's the case, why is the Gemara asking what's the din by making makam chazaka? Hapshita din migum makam edim le'armina. We have a din that migum makam edim we don't say. That is edim to the effect of that you're chayiv, even if you have a migu saying I could have made a better lie, mach d'shtois. We have a witnesses that say otherwise. So if a migu doesn't work with makam edim, and this chazaka is stronger than edim, so then it's circular logic. It's a circular logic, right? Chazaka is stronger than edim. Edim is stronger than migu, then chazaka will also be stronger than migu. So you can resolve the issue from the statement you mentioned earlier that you can collect based on this chazaka without a shvua. Unlike a shtar, which you would require a shvua. Okay? So kol shekin, much more so makam chazaka tadifat fei. So if you cannot say a migu when you have edim, how the more so you cannot say migu when you have chazaka, which seems to be stronger. This chazaka seems to be stronger than shtar, than edim / shtar. Okay, so we have to undo this. We have to undo this kol shekin. We have to undo the kol shekin and explain why, notwithstanding the fact that the chazaka is strong enough for you to collect without a shvua, nonetheless, it still doesn't have the power of the shtar to undo your migu. How's that? But Rabbi said that the loy kosher cloud. This is not a problem. Why? The badai edim adif machazaka. Certainly, edim are stronger than a chazaka. as a rule. What's the raya? If Eidim come and say that you paid early, potter, you're exempt from paying. So the presence of Eidim outweighs the chazaka. The chazaka says a person never pays early. Eidim say you did pay early. Okay, you're potter, you paid early. So Eidim is stronger than chazaka. But now the question is, if that's the case, then why, when it comes to Eidim that testify that I owe money to these children, I have to take a shvuah that I never got paid back? I'm sorry, when Eidim come and testify that the children owe me money, I have to take a shvuah to get that money back. But if it's Torah's money, I don't have to have shvuah to get that money back. Why is that? If we just finished saying that Eidim overweigh chazaka. So you have to parse between the different types of Eidim. Right? The Amri. One second. So if Eidim come along and say, I paid back early, notwithstanding the chazaka that a person never paid back early, Eidim say I paid back early, for sure I'm potter. Now the Amri, if Eidim come along and say, afilu achazman, even way after the due date, and these Eidim say, Yadana, we know Shaloi Paro, they didn't pay back. Let's say, like the Rashi we had earlier, he was on vacation with us, we know he didn't pay back money. Then he would collect without a shvuah. So Eidim come along and say, let's say they say, we were with the father on vacation since the date alone, or he died with us, or before he died, he admitted to us that he never paid.
I paid back on such and such a day, and the Eidim say, no, on such and such a day.
You were somewhere else, exactly. Whatever it is. We had Eidim that say we didn't pay back. And even if it's way after the time, the collectors don't need to take a shvuah in order to collect from the Yisem. So whichever way you slice it, the Eidim outweigh the chazaka. Right? Whether the chazaka is that you need to take a shvuah to collect, if Eidim prove that you definitely owe the money, don't take a shvuah. And likewise, if Eidim say that I paid back early, I also am potter. Because I've Eidim, even though it's a chazaka that says I never pay. Now, if that's the case, why is it that when you have a shtar that says I owe, that these kids owe me money, or their father owed me money, so why is it that I need a shvuah then? Seemingly, I have Eidim that I didn't get paid.
Through the shtar,
Through the shtar. The shtar is Kayach Eidim, right? So Masha Tzarach shvuah b'yesh shtar. So why is it that I need to take a shvuah when I have a shtar? This is because the shtar itself does not indicate whether I was paid back or not. All the shtar says is that I was owed money on X date. It doesn't make a statement about what happened since that date. When Eidim come and say definitively that I paid or I didn't pay, then I'm either chayav or potter, irrespective of chazaka. But the Eidim on the shtar are not indicating whether I paid or not. The Eidim on the shtar are only testifying that I was owed money, but not what happened since then. So because the shtar itself is not a direct contradiction to the Yisraelim's claim, theoretically, that our father paid off already, therefore I have to take a shvuah. Right? If it doesn't say, it doesn't indicate within the shtar whether I paid or not. So the question is, there's a general rule which is shtar chaviyad my boy. If I didn't pay you back, why is the shtar still in my hand? Why do I still have it? If I owe you money, if you pay back already, so why do I still have it? So the question now becomes shtar chaviyad my boy. Why do you have the shtar if the shtar doesn't indicate that the person owed you money? What's the point? So not what's the point of the shtar. The question is, why do you still have it? If the theoretical claim is that our father paid off already.
Okay, because you're supposed to rip it up after the...
Yeah. So it says like this, Zimnin desirely, it's a Gemara in Bava Mitzvah, which I didn't look up. But the Gemara in Bava Mitzvah says, the Zimnin desirely, sometimes the borrower, the lender, keeps the shtar. Desirely keeps it. Abshite de safra, in order to know, something to do with him knowing what he owes the scribe who wrote the shtar. So it's something to do with, like, you have to pay out the guy who wrote the shtar, because everything back then was written by hand and scribe and all that. And the scribe had to be a Talmud Chacham to know all the halachas of shtar. So it's an expensive, it's a cost. Like the halacha is, the Rambam discusses in halacha which shtar who has to pay for the cost of the scribe. So he's keeping it for that cost. So Perek Bava Mitzvah, we find the Bava Mitzvah. Now, I don't think that this rule, I didn't look up the Gemara in Bava Mitzvah, but it doesn't seem to me, maybe I should look it up before I say anything, but it doesn't seem to me that this is a universal statement. Because if that's the case, we undermine the existence of all shtarim. Which would mean, like your Moshe saying, every time I have a star, I have to swear, because maybe the reason why I'm holding a star is to pay back what's the point of the whole star, right? L'chura, this is combined with the fact that the father may have paid back. Because before he died, there is such an idea that maybe he paid off, he doesn't want to die with debt, saddling his kids with this issue. So that, combined with that, that's what I'm suggesting. I have to look at the more Bava Mitzvah to be more for sure certain about that. Okay. So this is the Ri telling us what? That Migu is not stronger than Edim, certainly, but we're still not certain if it's stronger than Chazaka. The Chazaka is strong enough to not make you swear, whereas a Shtar is not strong enough to make you not swear. It seems to be the Chazaka is stronger. The reason is because the Chazaka contradicts the claim of the children. The claim of the children is that the father paid back, the theoretical claim. The Chazaka contradict that because people don't pay back early. The presence of the Shtar doesn't directly contradict the theoretical claim that the children are saying it paid back early. It just says that once upon a time it was alone. It doesn't say anything happened afterwards. It's unlikely that a guy paid back, considering that the guy's still holding the Shtar. Okay, we can find some excuses and explain why the guy's still holding on to the Shtar. But it's not but the Shtar itself doesn't directly contradict it. It implicitly contradicts it, which is why we want you to take a Shvuah. Whereas the Chazaka, it directly contradicts the claim of the children, therefore no Shvuah is required. That's the difference. But it's not to say in any way that a Chazaka is stronger than a Shtar. It's not. Shtaras and Edim are stronger than Chazaka. But what does the Edim say? The Edim don't say that you didn't pay. The Edim just say that there was a loan. So that's where we are right now. So continue Tosafos ask me but however, now this is attempt number 2 to resolve. That was attempt number 1 to resolve the Gemara's question of Migum Mokum Chazaka by comparing it to a Shtar. And now we say, well, you can't do that. Or you could, but you have to find the Shtar which directly contradicts the statement of the Migu, or directly contradicts the statement of the Chazaka. Now Tosafos is attempting to resolve the issue in another way. But however, it's still difficult. Nonetheless, we should settle the issue that the loya migum makom chazaka, that you do not say a migu in the place of chazaka. Where do we derive this from? From that which Rabbi Bar Chama said, the Omar which said, the Perek on Ishboin, the Gemara in Shuas, where there he said, Hamafkid etzachavedoi b'shtar, someone who leaves something that he gives up to Kadin. He asks of his friend to hold on to something for him on his behalf, and he does so with a Shtar, indicating that item belongs to me, because he's worried that his friend is going to turn around one day and say it belongs to me. So he writes a Shtar saying that belongs to me, and you're just holding it on to me. Okay. So tzarich lahachzer loy b'shtar or be'edim, different ways of reading, different versions. You have to pay back with a Shtar or edim, right? Right? Why? Very simple. Because if he gave it back to me without edim or a Shtar, then one day I'm going to pull out the Shtar and say, you owe me this thing. Where is it? Okay, so you have to have a Shtar to prove that it was given back, or edim. Now, Tosafos, l'chur over there, you also have a migu. You have if Reuven gives Shimon a gold ring, he says, hold on to me, and he has a Shtar. So Reuven's holding on to a Shtar, which says that Shimon is holding on to my gold ring. Okay. Reuven now comes to collect the gold ring. Shimon gives it back. No edim or Shtar. 2 months later, Reuven pulls out a Shtar and says, Shimon, you owe me a gold ring. So Shimon said, I paid you back already. Right? And that said, Rami Bar Chama is not good enough. Which is why when you give it back, you have edim or Shtar there. So commentates and says, Shimon actually has a migu. Why does he need edim? He has a migu. He's not believed to say I paid you back already without proof of an edim or Shtar. What's the migu? Because if Shimon wanted, he could have said, Dinensu. that it was taken from me forcibly. And the halacha is by pikadon, that forcible taken away, I'm not responsible. It was stolen from me. So this is the scenario. Reuven gives Shimon a gold ring. Reuven is holding on to a star which says Shimon is holding on to his gold ring. Shimon pays it back. Reuven produces a star and says, Shimon, where's my ring? Shimon says, I paid you back already. And what's the proof that I paid it back? Because if I really wanted to lie, I would have just said it was stolen from me. And the pikadon is potter. Right? And we don't say amigu. Now, why don't we say amigu? Because right now, what are you claiming? Right now, you're claiming you paid it back. Right now, Shimon's claiming he paid it back. And Shimon claiming that he paid it back, he gave it back, is in contradiction to the fact that Reuven's holding the star. Because the Matzi Amar, because Reuven could say back to him, my boy. What's your star doing in my hands? So if I have a star, why do you say pay it back? Which means the migu is not strong enough to undermine just that claim of why the star in my hand. So kol shekain, how much more so? How much more so we don't say migu makom chazaka? The chazaka difa. Again, because chazaka is stronger than a star. In which way is chazaka stronger than a star? The ein tzarich shvua. When you're collecting money with a star from your son, you have to have a shvua. When you're collecting money with a chazaka that is before this man, you don't have to have a shvua. So chazaka is stronger than a star. And yet in the case of a star of a pikadon, there's a migu with a nifgad, the person who held on to the ring, Shimon, could have said, it was stolen from me. And yet because he said, I give it back, and this claim I give it back is in contradiction to the fact that Reuven's holding the star. And because of that, he's not believed. So how much more so over here, when the guy's claiming I paid you back early, it's in contradiction to the chazaka. And if the presence of the star in Reuven's hand is enough to quash Shimon's claim based on an amigu, how much more so the chazaka should be in the hands of Reuven, who says you would never pay back early, should quash the claim of Shimon that I did pay back early, based on the fact that Migla could have said I paid back on time. Yeah, clear? And what's the eye? The chazaka is stronger than shvua again because of Simon. When you collect from your Simon with a shvua, when you collect from your Simon with a star, you need a shvua. When you collect from your Simon with a chazaka that you paid back at the guy with a chazaka that the guy didn't pay back early because he died before the time, you don't need a shvua. Now,
by the Yosemite, he's coming to collect.
I come with the star. This guy owes me money, and now he's dead. So I go to the children and say, pay up.
And that's today's man or after this man?
After the due date.
After.
There's money. Then I don't need a shvua. I don't need a star. I need a star. I don't need a shvua. Because I'm chazaka. The guy didn't pay back early, right? That's the Gemara statement. That's what he asked me.
Yeah, but if he passed away before this man and you're coming to collect from Yosemite with the chazaka, are you coming to collect after the due date or before?
It doesn't say explicitly, but I don't think it.
Can't collect before the due date, right?
So let's just say after the due date. He died before due date, I think.
Therefore he
didn't pay back because he died before due date. Yeah. Although it doesn't say so explicitly anywhere. At least I haven't seen yet, but makes sense. Okay, so this continues. Okay, so at this point we seem to have a resolved issue. We see in the case of Pikadon that Reuven holds a star that says that Shimon's holding on to the Pikadon, and Shimon said, I gave it back to you. Notwithstanding the fact that Shimon is a migu, I said that I could have said it was taken from me. The presence of the star outweighs that migu, so much more so the presence of the chazaka that a person never paid back early should outweigh the migu. Okay, let's continue this. The timer. Now this logic, what's your star doing in my hand? You're claiming, you Shimon are claiming you gave me back the ring. Reuven says if that's the case, why am I still holding on to the star? Loi mahanim is still not enough. Lepoitre mishvua. It's not, never mind. Interesting. Never mind the Yisayimim, but the presence of the star Reuven will have to collect the Pekodim with a Shvur, even though he has a star. Right? The time where the Shtorchim with my boy, Lemahani the Pratim Shvur, no, could be talking about Yisraelim. Yeah. The reason, right, this logic, the logic that like this. The logic that the Ram Bar Chama used over there, where Reuven is holding on to the star, and that's why he says, you have no migu because Shtorchim yad my boy. Right? Take that same logic and apply it to the Yisraelim. Where a guy comes to collect money, and it's after the due date, and the Yisraelim say, take a shvua, but he says, why am I taking a shvua? Shtorchim yad my boy, I have your father's star. That's not enough to take away the shvua. And Chazaka is strong enough to take away the shvua if the father died before his man. And then if in the presence of shvua, we still don't say migu, even when the shvua does, even when the shtar doesn't directly contradict it, because when it comes to the Dekodim, when it came to the case before, the shtar didn't directly contradict the statement. The shtar just said there was a loan by Yisraelim, but doesn't say what happened after the loan. Same thing about the Dekodim. The shtar just says that I gave Shimon to hold on to my ring. It doesn't say whether we give it back or not. And yet that presence of that shtar is enough to undermine the migu of Shimon, who says I could have said that it was stolen from me. So much more so the chazaka. The chazaka, the person doesn't pay back early. Yeah? Clear now? What?
Yes.
Yeah? Right? The chazaka is that a person never pays back early. And this guy is saying, Amigu, I paid you back. He's claiming I paid back early. And he's bikoyach migu that I could have said I paid back on time.
Yeah,
My chazaka contradicts your statement, even though you have migu. Now, in the same scenario with the shtar, where where someone comes to collect money from Yisraelim with the shtar, right? So the presence of the star in my hand proves that your father never paid back. And yet I still have to take a shvur to collect money from you if it's achas mana.
but I don't get
Right, so the presence of a star doesn't take away the shvur, but the chazaka does take away shvur.
But the migu there is not a contradiction to the chazaka. The chazaka, the shtar, meaning the shtar said it creates a chazaka.
Yeah, exactly.
That you I gave it to as a pikadon, but then the migu that he's trying to invoke doesn't negate that.
Right, so
It's just saying, well, it was yes, true, but it was stolen. It's different than
the only contradiction, it's not a contradiction to his migu, it's a contradiction to his current claim that he gave it back. My boy.
Okay, fine. Yes.
And yet still the notion of shtar my boy applied to Yisraelim does not take away your shvur.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And yet chazaka does apply to Yisraelim does take away the shvur. Is it right that chazaka is stronger than shtar? So if shtar takes away migu, and chazaka also takes away migu. If chazaka takes away shvur, when shtar doesn't take away shvur. Okay. So says Tosafos, this is so strong that B'Shema perhaps sugya dahacha. The Gemara here loy savra kerami bar chama rejects Rami bar Chama's din. So Rami bar Chama, which said, just straight up, Tosafos seems so confident. We're so confident that would resolve the issue that they conclude that the Gemara must be disagreeing with that Gemara there. Rami bar Chama, which said that the migu does not work when a person says a migu that the guy Shimon's claiming I gave back the ring to Reuven, and he's saying, believe me because I could have said it was stolen from me. Rami bar Chama concludes he's not believed because Shtar Chabiyad my boy. So he's just saying our Gemara would say lav dafka. Maybe the migu is strong enough, just like maybe the migu is strong enough to undo my chazaka. That's what Tosafos leaves that. Period. New statement from Tosafos. V'loidami, don't compare our Gemara klal at all lahu to the Gemara in Perek Omer, which is Gemara in Shavuos also, where there it says the Omar where it says heicha the muchzik lan the islay acha, a guy who's a person who's married, a guy's married, right? We know he has brothers. Okay, so we know he has brothers. Now, Omar he says yesh li banim, I have sons, and now he dies. So his widow ordinarily has to do either yibum or chalitza with the brothers of her deceased husband. But he claimed that he has sons. And if he has sons, so we have a chazaka that has brothers, and we have a claim that he has children. So does that claim undermine the chazaka? So says the Gemara there in Shavuos, Denemon, we believe the husband that he has sons, even though we have no idea who they are, and we know definitely he has brothers. So chazaka of brothers, doubt on children. The only reality of children is the husband's claim. We have no idea. We've never met these children. Maybe he said they died early. Who knows? Right? But we believe him, and therefore the wife does not have to do yibum chalitza because she has children, because he has children. Then why do we believe him? The migu, based on a migu, the boy potter will get kita, because if he wanted to, before he died, instead of saying I have children, he could have just given her a get. So because he had the option to free her from yibum chalitza through a different means, so when he frees her from yibum chalitza by saying he has children, we believe him. Now this seems to be also a chazaka that we have brothers, and the migu of the husband is outweighing the chazaka that he has brothers. Why do we believe that he has children? Because migu, I could have given a get.
He has brothers.
I'm saying we know he has brothers because we've seen them.
Yeah.
But we've never heard of his children before.
Right.
And the only.
Oh, so I mean, but when you're saying chazaki has brothers, it's just like it's established.
It's established, exactly. It's established he has brothers, right? And that he has children is not established.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a migu who he has children.
Mm-hmm.
That migu outweighs the established fact that he has brothers. So Tosafos don't compare that to here.
Yeah, migu or no migu, he has brothers.
Maybe that's, let's see what Tosafos says. The likewise, he as well, the Isha Shalom, the Gemara in Yavamis, Perek Isha Shalom, where there it says, the Gemara asks, she says, so a woman comes along and says, my husband died because there was a war in the world, and he was at that war and died during the war. Now we do not know of such a war. Us, the Bezin, we have never heard of such a war. So do we believe her or not? Chazaka is there's no war. She's claiming there is a war. What's the validity to her claim? Also migu. The Gemara asks, Mi Omar, do we say, the Gemara asks for the same thing, Migu Makam Chazaka. Mi Omar, do we say, Migu di boy Omra, Shalom Boilam. Had she come and said, he died of natural causes, peace in the world, no war, he died of natural causes. We would have believed him. We believed her because the halacha is a woman's believed to say my husband died. So she could have said that. But now she undermined her own claim by saying he died in war, and we never heard of such a battle. Right? So it's a Migu, no Makam Chazaka. Chazaka, no war. But migu, I could have said there was peace. Or do we say, because she holds a chazaka, that there was a war, and she says, that she assumes he died at the war. Right? So do we say, we don't have the migu to undo the chazaka? The Gemara asks the same question there as it does here. And the Gemara over there asks the similar question to we ask here. It says, that is not at all compared to here. No, Tosafos is concerned with the Gemara asking the same question twice, unresolved, in two different ways. But it's different. The migu over there, the makam chazaka is different than the migu here, makam chazaka. And I guess it's the same point. Both of them share the same commonality. The chazaka of the brothers there is not a chazaka of presumption, but a chazaka of reality. Yeah. Same thing with the war. It's not a chazaka of presumption, it's a chazaka of reality. As opposed to here, it's a chazaka of presumption. Yeah. The presumption is people don't pay back early. How strong is the presumption? That's presumably.
Fact may or may not be different.
That's right. So maybe that's.
We have a legal presumption that it's.
Maybe that's why Tosafos is saying this scenario, the chazaka of the makam migu, is different than a resolved one with brothers and an unresolved one with a wife talking about a war that existed somewhere that we never heard of. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, next statement. Final statement. Mio ever kasha, the following is a problem. Right? So we had one attempt to resolve the migu, rejected that. Another attempt to resolve the migu, does resolve the migu. So Tosafos says it's a machlokes between here and there. that the Gemara here is not accepted from Bar Chama. Now another question. Me, however, caution the time Yevama is Perek Beishamai. We learned the Gemara in Yevama in Perek called Beishamai. There it says Yevama Shamra, a woman says, Toich Shloishim Yoim Lo Nivalti. Within 30 days after she married the brother-in-law, so her husband died without children, so she's marrying the brother-in-law, and for 30 days within 30 days after the wedding, after they're living together, she says we were never intimate. Now Yibum is only done through intimacy.
Mhm.
So she's basically claiming that Yibum never happened. So what do they do now? So because it's within 30 days, we compel the brother, that should say lachlik, to give a chalitza. Because obviously this marriage ain't working out. They've been spending time together in the house for the last 3 weeks, and they still can't consummate the relationship. So we force them to give a chalitza. You lost your privilege on getting a yivama out. Now, if it's after 30 days, it's been 2 months or 3 months, and she says, we still haven't been together, then mevakshim himena, we don't compel him to give a chalitza. We ask him, please, can you give the chalitza? Because it's been 3 months, and she's obviously unhappy. Please, can you give a chalitza? Now, what's the difference? Why before 30 days we force, and after 30 days we don't force, we only ask him? So the Father Shasam, the Gemara over there in Yervamis explains, the Ad Shloshim Yom, up until 30 days, Muki Inish Nafshay, a person can contain himself. Go 30 days without being with a woman, can handle it. Today, more than that, Loy Muki, impossible. They must have closed. Well, therefore, but it's not certain. If it was certain that they closed, then we would say give a get, not chalitza, right? Because it was already a marriage. So it's very unlikely that they weren't together living. They weren't physically together living together for more than 30 days. Unlikely. Therefore, after 30 days, ain't koifin, we can't compel him. To loy mehemne, because she's not believed when she says he didn't close. Afagav the Islam migu, even though she has a migu. Why? Because if she wants, she could have said, he is incapable of performing. Because in that case, she is believed. So here we see a migu, a makum chazaka, that does not work. The chazaka is that the guy can't go 33 months without doing anything. That's the chazaka. She's claiming anti-chazaka, that he wasn't with me. The koyach migu, that she can't be with me. And yet we still say the chazaka overrides. So here Tosafos says another ayah, that l'chora, chazaka overrides the migu. So 2 places Tosafos already brought that the chazaka overrides the migu. So the first case was Rabbi Bar Chama. So Tosafos says the Gemara here rejects the Gemara over there in Rabbi Bar Chama. But this final one seems like Tosafos is accepting that it must be universal, and therefore Tosafos is asking, why isn't this resolving the issue? Now, my question on this, just this time, I'm pointing out diuk in the Tosafos, why does the third possible resolution come after 2 comments about not comparing our chazaka to somewhere else? It seems like it's interjected. Unless, now that we qualified, in other words, unless this raya somehow
solves those problems.
Either solves those problems, or only becomes a question after those problems, after those issues. Only after we distinguish between this chazaka and that chazaka, where that's a chazaka fact, and this is a chazaka presumption. Now this becomes a raya that can happen, because this is a chazaka presumption.
Yeah.
It's not a chazaka fact. It's like a presumption. So maybe it's only after this one. Which is interesting actually. Actually this makes sense, because the first 2 rayas, the first one that Tosafos rejected, and the second one they said that Rabbi Bar Chama is arguing, over there, it's neither a fact nor a presumption. It's the presence of a star.
Yeah.
So in those cases, there was a question of which one's greater, chazaka or star. We tried to say this one's greater, that one's greater, and in one case we couldn't. In one case we come to the conclusion that the chazaka must be greater, right? But now Tosafos is saying there's a new issue of chazaka here. Not a question of is this presumption against your argument, but is this presumption a fact or not a fact? So first of all, let's delineate between actual fact and legal and presumed fact. Now that we've understood that this is a presumed fact, I have another case of presumed fact where migu does not work. Maybe that's how this Tosafos flows.
And this presumed, yeah, exactly. That's why this one is the last
Is
one.
the last
It's
one-
most analogous to.
That's correct.
Gemara.
Because the first two attempts was not a question on presumed fact. It was a question of shtar outweighs chazaka, and chazaka outweighs shtar, so therefore chazaka must also outweigh migu. It didn't talk to the nature of the chazaka itself.
Right.
But now that we talked about the nature of the chazaka, comparing or separating between chazaka of fact versus chazaka presumption, and we define that this is a chazaka presumption rather than a chazaka of fact, now we can introduce another case where there is a chazaka of presumption, and yet the migu doesn't work. Okay, that's very good.
That's more, it's almost conceptual reasoning based on the concept. Right? And the first one is more like, okay, there's levels and
Yeah,
like
but the
we're not going to
pecking
look
order-
into why,
exactly.
we're just going to look at what's bigger. And,
Exactly. It's a pecking order of the first two cases. Shtar, chazaka, migu. Where do I put them in the pecking order? Whereas now we're giving kind of a classification to what exactly this is. Very good. Okay, beautiful. Shikayach. Good night.